Life has a way of breaking you at the moments you least expect. It doesn't always crack loudly. Sometimes it breaks you quietly, through disappointment, through betrayal, through the slow weight of exhaustion you've been carrying for too long. And when that moment comes, when life feels too heavy and you feel too small, your mind becomes the battleground. Not the outside world, not the events, but your inner response. Strength begins with accepting what you cannot change. This is the foundation of a strong mind, yet it is the step most people resist. When something painful happens, the mind's first reaction is to fight reality. You replay the moment, you rewrite the outcome in your imagination, you argue with circumstances that will not argue back. This inner resistance becomes its own form of suffering. You feel anger, frustration, fear, all because you want life to be something different from what it is right now. But reality does not bend to your emotions. It does not soften because you wish it would. The more you fight it, the more it hurts. Acceptance is not approval. It is understanding that what has already happened cannot be undone by thought alone. Acceptance is choosing to work with reality instead of against it. When you accept what you cannot change, something inside you calms. You stop wasting energy on questions that have no answers. You stop trying to force life to rewind. You allow the truth to stand as it is. This calmness does not remove the pain, but it removes the unnecessary suffering that comes from resistance. You begin to feel a small space inside you, a quiet place where strength starts to grow. That space appears the moment you say, "This is hard, but it is real. I cannot change the past. I can only decide how to respond now." This shift in perspective changes everything, because the moment you stop fighting reality, you stop losing energy to the impossible. Many people confuse acceptance with weakness. They believe that accepting something painful means giving up. But true acceptance is a form of clarity. It allows you to see what is within your control and what is not. Only then can you take meaningful action. If you refuse to accept reality, you spend all your strength fighting shadows instead of facing the actual challenge. Acceptance frees your mind to focus on what you can change. Change your attitude, your choices, your next move. It is the beginning of a calmer, clearer, stronger inner world. Think of a person standing in front of a locked door, pushing it with all their strength, wishing it would open. They exhaust themselves. They become angry, frustrated, hopeless. They blame themselves or the world or the door. But no matter how much they push, that door will not open. Acceptance is the moment they finally stop pushing, step back, and notice that another door exists just a few steps away. When you accept what you cannot change, you stop misusing your strength. You redirect it to places where it can actually make a difference. Acceptance also protects you from emotional spirals. When something painful happens, your mind often tries to create stories around it. This always happens to me. Why am I so unlucky? Will things ever get better? These stories feed your suffering. Acceptance interrupts them. It brings you back to the simple truth. This happened. I cannot change it. I can only choose my next step. That truth is grounding. It stops the mind from running into fear or regret. It keeps you in the present, where your power actually exists. When you practice acceptance, you train your mind to stay steady even in chaos. You teach yourself that strength is not about controlling everything. It is about responding with clarity. When life is beyond your control, you become more patient, more balanced, and less reactive. You stop wasting energy on battles you cannot win. Instead, you focus on building yourself, strengthening your character, and moving forward with purpose. Acceptance is the first doorway to inner strength because it frees your mind from resisting reality. Only then can you begin to rise. Strength grows from the discipline of managing your emotions instead of letting them manage you. When life breaks you, emotions rise fast: fear, anger, sadness, confusion. They come like waves, sometimes small, sometimes violent. Most people let these waves control their thoughts and actions. They react without thinking, say things they regret, or fall into hopelessness. But a strong mind does not allow emotions to dictate every response. A strong mind observes emotions the way you would observe weather, noticing the storm without becoming the storm. This discipline does not come naturally. It is trained through awareness, patience, and deliberate practice. The first step is learning to pause. When a painful emotion hits, your instinct might be to react immediately. You want to defend yourself, escape, or fix the discomfort. But strength begins with a moment of stillness. A pause gives you space to breathe, to think, and to understand what you are actually feeling. Without this pause, you operate from impulse. With it, you operate from clarity. This simple act of stopping before reacting can change your entire experience. It gives you the time to ask yourself, is this emotion guiding me or misleading me? A strong mind chooses to respond, not explode. The second step is recognizing that emotions are real but not always accurate. Just because you feel something does not mean the world is exactly as your mind shows it. Your emotions reflect your internal state, not absolute truth. Anger might convince you that someone meant to hurt you when they didn't. Fear might convince you that you are in danger when you are not. Sadness might convince you that you are alone when you are supported. When you learn to separate emotion from fact, you reclaim power over your inner world. You stop being controlled by temporary feelings. You start guiding yourself through them with wisdom. Another part of emotional discipline is allowing feelings to move through you without suppressing them or becoming consumed by them. Many people choose extremes. Either they bottle emotions until they explode, or they let emotions overwhelm them until they break down. But a strong mind practices balance. You acknowledge the emotion, name it, feel it, and let it pass. You do not judge yourself for feeling it. You simply refuse to let it decide your thoughts or your identity. When you practice this consistently, emotions lose their ability to shake you as deeply as before. You develop an inner steadiness that remains even in chaotic moments. Emotional discipline also means choosing your internal dialogue. The thoughts you repeat become the atmosphere of your mind. If your mind is filled with self-blame, self-pity, or predictions of failure, your emotions will mirror that negativity. But when you guide your inner voice toward calm and strength, your emotions slowly follow. You cannot stop feelings from rising, but you can shape the environment they rise in. A strong mind replaces destructive thoughts with steady ones. Instead of, "Why is this happening to me?" the trained mind says, "I will face this step by step." Instead of, "I can't handle this," it says, "I will grow through this." These shifts seem small, but over time they change the entire emotional landscape. It is also important to understand that emotional discipline does not make you cold or numb. It makes you stable. You still feel deeply, but you do not drown in those feelings. You still experience pain, but you are not defeated by it. You develop the ability to experience emotions fully without losing yourself to them. This is one of the greatest strengths you can build, because life will continue to challenge you. Life will continue to bring moments that trigger anger, sadness, or fear. Your strength will come from meeting these moments with awareness instead of panic, with calm instead of chaos. As you train your mind to manage your emotions, you begin to move through life with more confidence. You stop reacting to every small difficulty. You stop letting trivial things steal your peace. You begin to trust yourself, because you know you can handle what you feel. Emotional discipline becomes a shield that protects your inner world. It becomes proof that you can stay steady even when life tries to shake you. When life breaks you, your first instinct is to resist the pain, to fight it, or to escape it. But the truth is that pain is not the enemy. Your relationship with pain determines whether it destroys you or strengthens you. Every struggle you face brings with it an opportunity for growth, but most people become so focused on the discomfort that they miss the lesson hidden inside it. Strength begins when you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this shaping inside me?" This shift in perspective turns suffering into training. It turns hardships into teachers. It turns wounds into wisdom. The human mind naturally runs from pain. It seeks comfort, familiarity, and predictability. But comfort rarely builds strength. Predictability rarely builds resilience. When you avoid pain, you avoid growth. When you run from discomfort, you run from the very moments that can elevate you. Life breaks you so that it can show you what you are capable of rebuilding. Strength is born in the space where comfort ends and courage begins. Think of any person who has depth, wisdom, or inner power. Their strength was not inherited. It was forged in moments where they had no choice but to push through difficulty. Pain reveals parts of you that comfort hides. When everything is easy, you do not know your patience, your endurance, your ability to stay calm, or your capacity to rise again. But when problems come, when something you love slips away, when life throws you into uncertainty, you meet the parts of yourself that are resilient, adaptable, and capable of more than you imagined. You learn to stand even when the ground feels unsteady. You learn to breathe even when emotions feel heavy. You learn to trust yourself even when life does not go your way. Pain introduces you to your deeper self. Pain also teaches you humility. It reminds you that you do not control everything. You cannot force life to follow your plans. You cannot prevent every loss, every heartbreak, every setback. Pain softens the ego and strengthens the spirit. It teaches you that real power does not come from controlling everything around you, but from mastering what happens inside you. When life breaks you, you learn that survival is not about being the strongest on the outside. It is about being steady on the inside. This humility turns into wisdom. It shows you how to flow with life instead of fighting every moment. There is another important lesson in pain. It slows you pain so you can see clearly. When you move through life too fast, you act from impulse, habit, or fear. But when hardship hits, everything becomes more still. You are forced to reflect, to question, to evaluate what truly matters. Pain removes distractions. It strips away illusions. It shows you the truth of who you are and what you value. It teaches you to let go of things you once held too tightly, and to appreciate the things you once overlooked. Pain refocuses you on what is essential. Pain also builds emotional endurance. Just like muscles grow stronger through resistance, the heart grows stronger through challenges. You learn to sit with discomfort without panicking. You learn to trust time, patience, and intention. You learn that what feels unbearable in the moment becomes manageable when you breathe through it. Each time you face pain, you develop a layer of inner strength that will serve you in the future. You become harder to break, not because life gets easier, but because you grow wiser in the way you handle it. Above all, pain teaches you that you are capable of standing up again. Even when you fall, even when everything feels heavy, even when you think you cannot take another step, you rise. You might rise slowly, but you rise, and each rise builds resilience. Each rise builds confidence. Each rise builds the unshakable belief that no matter what breaks you, you have the power to rebuild. Strength grows when you learn to focus only on what is in your control, and let go of everything that lies outside your reach. Most of the suffering you experience does not come from the event itself, but from your attempts to control outcomes, people, circumstances, and the future. When life breaks you, part of the pain comes from believing you must fix everything, prevent every loss, and protect yourself from every possibility. But the moment you understand that your responsibility ends where your control ends, something inside you becomes lighter. You begin to see that your mind becomes stronger when it stops wasting energy on battles it cannot win. You cannot control how people behave, but you can control how you respond. You cannot control what challenges come your way, but you can control the attitude you bring to them. You cannot control the past, but you can control the meaning you give it. You cannot control the future, but you can control the actions you take today. This separation, between what you can control and what you cannot, creates clarity. It stops your thoughts from wandering into fear, regret, or frustration. It pulls you back into the present, where your real power lies. Life becomes heavier when you try to carry things that are not yours to carry. You are not responsible for other people's choices. You are not responsible for outcomes that depend on forces beyond your influence. You are not responsible for predicting every turn your life will take. When you try to take responsibility for everything, you end up blaming yourself for things you never had the power to change. This wears down your mind. It makes you feel broken, defeated, or inadequate. But when you start focusing only on your own choices, your own reactions, and your own mindset, you reclaim your strength. Imagine standing in a storm. You cannot control the rain, the wind, or the darkness, but you can choose how you stand. You can choose whether you panic or breathe. You can choose whether you focus on the discomfort or on your ability to endure. The storm may not change, but you do. This is the heart of a strong mind, the ability to remain stable even when everything around you is unstable. Life will always bring storms, but the person who masters their inner world is never destroyed by the outer world. When you accept your limits, something powerful happens. You begin to act with more intention. You stop reacting out of fear. You stop assuming responsibility for things that were never in your hands, and this frees your mind from unnecessary stress. Instead of fighting reality, you learn to work with it. Instead of resisting every difficulty, you observe it, understand it, and respond with clarity. This calm, clear response is what makes you strong. Not the absence of pain or struggle, but the ability to face them without losing yourself. Focusing on what you can control also gives you direction. It helps you understand where to put your effort and where to withdraw your energy. When life breaks you, you might feel scattered, overwhelmed, or lost. But when you bring your attention back to the small circle of things you can actually influence, your habits, your thoughts, your decisions, you slowly rebuild a sense of stability. You remind yourself that even in chaos you have choices. You have agency, you have dignity. A strong mind is not one that controls everything. It is one that controls itself. When you stop fighting battles that are not yours, when you let go of trying to fix the unfixable, when you focus on the only thing you truly own, your inner world, you become unshakable. This is how strength grows, not by changing the world, but by mastering your response to it. A strong mind is not created in moments of comfort. but in the very moments when life becomes uncomfortable, heavy, and overwhelming. When everything feels easy, there is nothing pushing you to grow. Strength is carved out of difficulty, shaped by challenges, and built through experiences that test your patience, your discipline, and your emotional balance. When life breaks you, your first instinct is often to escape the discomfort, to avoid the pain, or to shut down emotionally. But every time you do that, you train your mind to run from hardship instead of facing it. A strong mind is trained through discomfort, not by seeking suffering, but by allowing yourself to stay present in difficult moments without collapsing inside. Discomfort teaches you resilience. It teaches you to breathe when fear rises, to think when emotions become loud, and to stay grounded when your world feels uncertain. If you always avoid what hurts, the hurt controls you. If you always avoid what challenges you, the challenge grows larger. But when you allow yourself to lean into the difficulty, just a little at a time, you begin to notice something powerful. The pain does not destroy you. It stretches you, shapes you, and strengthens your capacity to handle life. Each small moment of discomfort becomes a training session for your mind. Think about the times you have grown the most. It was never during the easy seasons. It was when something shook your beliefs, when you had to let go of someone, when plans fell apart, when life forced you to adapt. It was during loss, disappointment, uncertainty, or failure. These moments push you beyond your normal limits, and that is where strength is built. A muscle only grows when it is challenged. The mind is the same. If you never face struggle, the mind stays soft. But when you face pressure, your mental muscles start forming. The more you endure, the stronger you become. Training your mind through discomfort also means not reacting immediately to every emotion. When you feel anger, sadness, fear, or frustration, the instinct is to act quickly just to relieve the feeling. But acting in the heat of stress often makes things worse. Strength comes from pausing, from observing your emotions rather than being ruled by them, from realizing that a feeling is not an order. When you sit with discomfort instead of running from it, something changes inside you. You begin to see that emotions rise and fall like waves. You are not the wave, you are the ocean that holds it. Life will always bring situations that hurt. People will disappoint you. Circumstances will shift, plans will fail, and moments will break you. But what determines your strength is not the event itself. It is how you face it. When you allow discomfort to shape you instead of scare you, your mind becomes more stable. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to understand that you can survive difficult moments without losing your balance. And each time you survive something hard, you rewrite your inner belief about who you are. You become someone who does not fall apart every time life becomes painful. You become someone who rises. This does not mean you should seek pain or force yourself into suffering. It means you stop trying to escape every uncomfortable feeling. You stop telling yourself that life must always feel good. You stop avoiding situations that stretch you. When life breaks you, you allow the experience to refine you rather than destroy you. You observe your thoughts, you sit with your emotions, you take slow and steady actions even when it feels heavy. Over time, discomfort becomes less frightening. You realize that you can endure more than you ever imagined. And that endurance becomes your greatest strength. A strong mind does not emerge from an easy life. It emerges from the willingness to stay present in life's hardest moments, to learn from them, and to rise through them. This is how discomfort trains you. This is how strength is built, not in comfort, but in the fire that life brings your way. Healing begins when you start asking fear-driven questions and start asking growth-driven ones. The questions you ask yourself during pain shape the direction of your mind. When life breaks you, your inner voice becomes loud, emotional, and often chaotic. It asks things like, "Why is this happening to me?" Or, "What if everything goes wrong?" Or, "What if I can't handle this?" These questions pull you deeper into anxiety because they have no real answers. They only create more fear. They make you imagine worst outcomes, doubt yourself, and feel powerless. A weak mind feeds on these questions, repeating them over and over until you believe them. But a strong mind learns to shift the questions. It learns to ask things that move you forward rather than trap you. Growth-driven questions change your relationship with pain. Instead of "Why me?" you ask, "What can I learn from this?" Instead of "What if I fail?" you ask, "What step can I take next?" Instead of "How do I escape this discomfort?" you ask, "How do I face this with clarity?" These questions do not magically remove the suffering, but they change your focus. They turn your mind from panic to possibility. They remind you that even when you cannot control the situation, you can control your perspective and your response. A strong mind is not built through perfect answers, but through better questions. Imagine two people going through the same hardship. One keeps repeating, "This is too much, I can't handle it." The other asks, "What is this struggle trying to teach me?" The first person becomes more helpless because their question leads nowhere. The second person becomes more grounded because their question opens a path. Both are in pain, but only one is growing through it. Life will always ask something from you: courage, patience, resilience. But the way you talk to yourself decides whether you rise or fall. Fear-driven questions are rooted in self-doubt. They come from the part of your mind that wants safety at all costs, even if that safety keeps you small. They push you to avoid challenges, avoid responsibility, avoid discomfort. But avoiding discomfort does not protect you, it weakens you. It makes the world feel more dangerous than it really is. When you change the questions, you change your strength. You teach your mind to focus on action instead of fear, on progress instead of paralysis. Growth-driven questions also build self-awareness. When you ask yourself, "What is actually in my control right now?" your mind becomes clearer. When you ask, "What matters most in this moment?" your emotions settle. When you ask, "What would the strongest version of me do next?" you create direction. These questions turn chaos into clarity. They help you focus on steps rather than problems. They guide you through the storm rather than leaving you stuck inside it. A strong mind is not afraid of the truth. It looks directly at a problem and asks the kind of questions that lead to understanding. It does not run from discomfort, it studies it. It does not deny pain, it learns from it. When you stop asking questions that feed your fear and start asking questions that build your character, you transform your inner world. You begin to see that every hardship contains a lesson, every setback contains a chance to grow, and every broken moment contains the possibility of rebuilding. The questions you ask yourself daily shape your entire life. They shape your courage, your patience, your choices, and your future. When you choose questions that make you stronger, you train your mind to handle difficulty with wisdom instead of panic. You learn to rise from challenges instead of collapsing under them. You discover that strength is not something you are born with. It is something you build every time you guide your mind toward growth instead of fear. Healing does not arrive in one big moment. It comes through small, steady steps that you take even when you feel broken, tired, or unsure. When life hits you hard, your first reaction is usually to wait for a big change, a sudden shift, a dramatic moment of relief. But real healing rarely works like that. It is built slowly through simple actions repeated day after day. You do not become strong by making one huge decision. You become strong by taking one small step, then another, and then another. This is how a strong mind is created, by consistency, not intensity. When life breaks you, everything inside you wants to shut down. You feel overwhelmed, and even the smallest task feels impossible. But this is exactly when small steps matter the most. Getting out of bed, taking a deep breath, drinking water, cleaning one corner of your room, going for a short walk, journaling for 5 minutes. These small actions seem insignificant, but they quietly rebuild your mind. Each step tells your brain, "I am still moving." And movement creates momentum. Momentum creates strength. Strength creates healing. You do not have to feel ready to take small steps. In fact, most of the time you won't feel ready at all. The mind becomes stronger when you act even when you don't feel like it. When you are hurting, your emotions tell you to wait until you feel better. But healing comes from showing up even when you don't feel better yet. Your emotions may say, "I can't," but your actions can still say, "I will." A strong mind listens to intention, not emotion. It learns to take small steps no matter what the heart is feeling. Small steps also protect you from collapsing under the weight of a big problem. When you try to fix your entire life in one day, you overwhelm yourself. You become discouraged and give up. But when you break your healing into tiny pieces, the journey becomes manageable. You stop expecting perfection and start focusing on progress. You stop measuring how far you still have to go and focus on the step right in front of you. The mind becomes calmer when it has one clear step instead of 1,000 unclear fears.